The line of U.S. diplomats and experts making their way to Korea in recent weeks has been a long one, with most discussions revolving around the security situation here on the peninsula and Korea-U.S. relations. One of those experts currently in the country is General Burwell Bell, and he joins us here today in the studio. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to our discussion.
We have lots to discuss, of course, but before we get into the bigger issues, let's talk about why you're back in the country currently. You served as commander of U.S. Forces Korea, the Korea-U.S. Combined Forces Command, and the United Nations Command for a 2-year period that ended in 2008. You were invited here this time around by the Korea Foundation. Tell us a little bit about the context of your visit.
Thank you. For the last year, I've been working with the Peterson Foundation, a New York-based think tank, and the Stimson Center in Washington, D.C., in helping craft some recommendations for the U.S. government that relate to a post-war national security strategy for the United States. When I say post-war, I'm talking about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And coming out of those wars, the question is for America, what's worth fighting for? What are our national interests? How do we evaluate those? And of course, here in Korea, how does that apply to Korea? So all that effort has been briefed and published in the United States. The Korea Foundation heard of this report and invited me over to make a presentation at one of their forums, and look forward to discussing those with you.
We will discuss many of those. Let's talk first here about North Korea threatening earlier this week to, quote, full-fledged confrontation with the United States for what it called continued hostilities. It basically confirmed suspicions that it will carry out a third nuclear test in the future, and also warned of future rocket launches. Before we get into the specifics of all of that, and there are a lot of them to get into, of course, I'd like to hear your reaction to Pyongyang's statement.
Well, my immediate reaction is not surprised. It's only been about 2 years since North Korea attacked savagely and viciously the Republic of Korea, both in sinking their corvette ship at great loss of life, and also in attacking their sovereign island and killing both civilians and military. To date, there's been no apology by North Korea for their lethal aggression. So these kind of statements coming out of North Korea are not surprising. They're intended, of course, to split the Korean-U.S. alliance in hopes that they can drive a wedge between two parties that have become close and endearing friends over 60 years now since the end of hostilities. And while I take their comments very seriously, they don't surprise me at all.
This is par for the course.
It is par
for
the
North
course.
Korea goes. The New York Times recently reported that American intelligence agencies have detected that the North is moving mobile missile launchers throughout the country, including a new one called the KN-08. I'm curious about what you make of that, and what should we make of that?
Yeah. Well, mobile missiles are the ultimate type of ICBM capability. They're hard to detect, they can be frequently moved, and they give anyone who possesses them an opportunity to pose a serious threat to an adversary. I don't believe that it's possible for North Korea to really have an operational mobile missile capability right now. But the mere fact that they've been testing missile technology continuously, the mere fact that they have worked hard on developing nuclear weapons capability, the mere fact that they now possess mobile launchers argues persuasively that they are full steam ahead in their efforts to develop an intercontinental ballistic missile that's mated with a nuclear weapon that's mobile and can be moved around their country, making it hard to find. So these are ominous signals out of North Korea, and must be dealt with pretty aggressively by freedom-loving people across this globe, not just here in South Korea.
You talk about dealing with it aggressively. How would you suggest South Korea and the U.S. and other countries go about that?
Well, I think we're off in the right direction with extremely strong UN sanctions. This is a bit unusual for the United Nations, so I was very pleased to see the very superb laydown by the United Nations articulating a defiant position against this aggression by North Korea. And likewise, I think it's important that the United States and the Republic of Korea recognize that North Korea is still in a leadership transition phase. Obviously, there's a leadership transition phase here in South Korea. The United States is, while we're not going into a new leadership, we're going into a new administration. So there's a lot of change going on during this era and a lot of opportunity for misunderstandings. And so we should be careful before we become too aggressive. But at the same time, we need to give the North Koreans an opportunity to engage. It's unfortunate that they came out today and yesterday, I guess it was also, with defiant perspectives of who the enemy is. But I am not surprised by it, and I don't put much stock in it, quite frankly. The United States, Republic of Korea are ready to defend against such types of threats, and I'm very confident North Korea will be reticent to make good on their threats at this point.
You mentioned outbursts, threats, call them what you will, but I mean, in all actuality, North Korea really doesn't have, the regime at least doesn't have any real intent, do they, to strike the United States? I mean, they'd be committing suicide if they were to do that. What is the fear there?
Well, I believe this is more about splitting the alliance than it is a direct fear of the United States. The North knows very well that the United States has no intention of attacking them. They know that our purpose is to remain in an alliance with our good friends, the Republic of Korea, ensure through strength that we deter aggression as we have done for 60 years with our partners, the South Koreans. And as we know, the North has endeavored repeatedly over that 60-year period to break that alliance apart and send the United States packing. This is more of that rhetoric. This is more about an attempt to split the alliance than it is about real capability of the North. So I think we ought to take it for what it's worth, and we ought to be understanding that the continuing efforts to split the alliance will fail. We understand their tactics and techniques, and we are not going to be deterred from, one, deterring aggression, and two, giving them opportunities to change and become better progressive members of the international community. But at the same time, real military strength is necessary on this peninsula to ensure that North Korea does not miscalculate.
Talked about the threats, we've talked about the missile program. Let's talk a little bit about the nuclear program. We just mentioned there that North Korea has basically confirmed they will be carrying out a third nuclear test sometime in the near future. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu famously stood in front of the United Nations last year and held up that chart showing a red line for Iran's nuclear program. What do you think is the red line for North Korea's nuclear program, and what happens after they cross that line?
Well, I don't know what the red line is. What I do know that is, one, it is a vital national interest of the United States of America to prevent North Korea from attacking us or our allies with any form of warfare, particularly nuclear weapons. It is therefore in the best interest of the United States to prepare for anything that the North Koreans could potentially throw at us, and then some. All I can tell you is this. North Korea knows that any intimidation that might come from their possessing a nuclear weapon will not deter the United States from our commitment to our ally, the Republic of Korea. Second, they also must know that we will take any development of a true long-range missile capability as a direct threat to the United States of America. It is essential that they realize that by taking those kinds of steps, they are raising tensions on this peninsula and in the world to a boiling point. I hope that Kim Jong-un will realize that this is the improper path for a modern country to take, and that if he's truly sincere about economic advancement and opening up his country, that he must turn away from nuclear development and missile development and put the good people of North Korea to work in developing their economy and improving their standard of living. That's the real answer for North Korea.
But I guess the question, though, is South Korea, the U.S. and its allies, how do you sort of convince a man and a regime that seems very unwilling to listen to any reason? What do you do?
Well, first you contain them. and I'm pretty confident that the current regimen, for containment is moving along commensurate with the threat. We see in the Security Council resolution consensus by members of the six-party talk process regarding this provocation by North Korea, their statement that they're going to detonate another nuclear weapon. As countries of the world clearly see the threat that North Korea is developing, no more just enriching uranium, but building real bombs, it's necessary, and I'm hopeful that a better consensus will be achieved. And the more consensus we have, the more capable we are of isolating and containing North Korea and preventing it therefore, from truly realizing a capability. It will take China in this effort to bring pressure to bear on the North Koreans and help them understand their options in this area of the world before we reach a boiling point. So we have to contain North Korea. We have to do it aggressively, and we have to give them opportunity for discussions and opportunity to change course. And I am hopeful that they will take this opportunity. Kim Jong-un still has the opportunity to make the right decisions, and we'll have to see if he does.
Are you hopeful at all about a resumption of the six-party talks?
No.
Why is that?
I do not see the six-party talks as useful at this point. And here's why. Throughout the six-party talk process, the North Koreans repeatedly deceived at least the United States, Japan, and South Korea at a minimum, and perhaps China and Russia, with regard to their nuclear program. Indeed, while we were talking, they were developing an underground uranium enrichment capability. So for the six-party talks to resume, many changes would have to be made, in my view, by the North Koreans in their attitude, their commitment, some demonstrable evidence that the six-party talks would be useful. To simply gather into a talking environment to watch North Korea extract economic aid and delay would not be useful.
Senator John Kerry, likely going to be the next Secretary of State in the United States. He's been an advocate of being more open toward North Korea. Do you expect that attitude to sort of show up in President Obama's second term in office?
It may very well. I am fully in agreement with being more open with North Korea. But they have to show something in this openness, whether that openness is United States, whether it's South Korea or whomever. They have to actually demonstrably show something. And right now, all we get from the North is rhetoric, more missile tests, nuclear threats, etc. So I think that anyone in a senior position, whether it's a new Secretary of Defense of the United States, the new Secretary of State, President Obama himself, is well advised to remind North Korea they have opportunity for engagement. We're willing to engage them. But that engagement needs to be conditionally based. And those conditions by the North have not been set yet. They've done nothing that I've seen to indicate that their meaningful talks could take place. But we're still hopeful, and we ought to remain hopeful.
I mean, when I look at the situation, though, it reminds me a bit of the movie Groundhog Day. It seems like the situation just keeps going down the same path. We see a ray of hope. People are hopeful. With the Leap Day agreement last year, for instance, and then it's followed up by a missile test. It seems like the story continues to be the same story time and time and time again. I guess my question is, what realistically can change that narrative, change that story, and why does the North even, why is there hope that the North would even change at this point?
Yeah. Well, in this Groundhog Day, the groundhog has changed, however. We have a new groundhog in North Korea, new leader. We're going to have a new leader in the South, new leaders in China, the United States, etc. The point is that there's opportunity for a way out of this continuing dilemma of a rogue state threatening peace in the world. There is a way out for them. There's a way to economic development. There's a way to peace and stability throughout this region. There's a way for them to achieve wealth and prosperity through economic development as opposed to confrontation. So the groundhogs have changed. And this means that the new Groundhogs have a chance to get together and make progress. But this now rests in Pyongyang. I believe we must remain strong militarily, diplomatically. We should have a strong consensus position with regard to behavior of the North, and we should wait and see if Kim Jong-un is in a strong enough position in his country to begin to turn their policies in a more productive manner. So far, we've not seen that.
Defense Secretary Leon Panetta and you, among others, has stressed the need for a missile defense system here in Asia. Panetta himself has been lobbying South Korea and Japan to do so very heavily, I might add. Make the case for us here.
Yeah, this is pretty close to North Korea, sitting right here. The trouble with missiles here in this area, they are weapons fundamentally of terror. You don't know where they're going. They're quick and they're fast. They're unmanned. And you can shoot a lot of them quickly. The only way you can defend against a threat like that is first through an integrated approach. In this case, the United States, Japan, the Republic of Korea all have certain capabilities. But combine those together in an internetted way, you get a synergistic effect that is very important. It gives you the capacity to attack missiles before they launch through cyber warfare techniques, the capacity to attack missiles quickly after they're launched when they're most vulnerable, and the capacity to decide what direction they're going in and hand off targets in a way that you get the most efficient use of your defense mechanisms, kinetic defenses that we have. So the more the United States, Japan, and the Republic of Korea can cooperate in a command and control sense to integrate our air defenses, the more effective they will be in neutralizing the capability that the North has. And don't forget, they've got short-range missiles, medium-range missiles, and long-range theater missiles that have to be dealt with, a large array of them. The good news is we do have good capability here, good capability on the oceans, and better integration will mean that that capability is synergistically enhanced. So I'm hopeful that we can continue to make progress in integrating the air defense systems here in the region.
You've made a strong point, but what's the sticking point at this point in time?
The sticking point is, one part of it's technical. The systems are not all that compatible. They can be made compatible. And the next is just pure will between the three countries and some of the challenges that we have in relations, in understanding of the threat, what it means. What does the North Korean threat mean to Japan? What does it mean to the United States? And what does it mean to South Korea? South Korea is interested in short-range missiles. The United States is interested in short-range missiles and long-range missiles. Japan is most interested in missiles that come in their direction. And so we have to work with each country to understand clearly how they see the threat and then use their resources to complement one another. But we're making progress. I can see it every day. And the air defense systems against missile attack are improving daily in the region. So we're not there yet, but progress is being made.
The South Korea-U.S. Combined Forces Command is scheduled to be dissolved in December 2015. Korean and U.S. military authorities are in working level discussions right now on how to best go about doing that. A lot of controversy, of course, surrounding this issue, though. What is the best situation, the best choice for Korea's national security from your perspective?
Yeah, this is all about what's called OpCon Transfer. And the question is, and has been since the end of the Korean War, who is going to be in operational control of Republic of Korea military forces? A U.S. general or a South Korean general? Who's going to do that? And over those years, we've seen a shift, clearly, in that regimen. For many years, the United States general was in charge of peacetime forces in the Republic of Korea. And when Combined Forces Command was established, peacetime OpCon reverted to South Korea. Most observers feel, and I can tell you, I am absolutely certain that South Korean generals are far superior in their warfighting capability, their strategic understanding, their operational art far superior to any general in North Korea. I don't know the generals in North Korea, but I guarantee you I know the ones in the South. These are first-rate generals. They are fully capable of commanding and controlling their own forces in wartime and should be given that opportunity. This is at the core of the issue of OpCon Transfer and the future of Combined Forces Command. So you see, it doesn't matter whether you call it Combined Forces Command or whether you have separate commands. What matters is, will a Korean general be put in charge of the war effort here on the peninsula with the U.S. in a supporting role on the peninsula, or will a U.S. general remain in command? Most observers believe it is time, it makes sense for a sovereign nation, the Republic of Korea, to command and control their warfight with the assured assistance of the United States in agreed-to plans and programs. So I'm hopeful that we continue to pursue OpCon Transfer. I'm less excited about the headquarters and how that works. But I hope in 3 years when I visit the peninsula, I can go see General Kim or General Park and understand that this general is in charge of securing this country from attack from North Korea.
And we're getting short on time, but I do want to ask you one more question. Korea trying to balance out its national interest between China and the United States. Of course, the Obama administration has made it clear it will pivot toward Asia during the second term. What role do you see South Korea playing in that pivot toward Asia?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's proper for South Korea to try to enhance relations with China. They're the largest trading partner. Many Korean companies operate in China. This is natural. It's good. I heartily endorse an effort by the Republic of Korea to improve relations with China. What the United States has said, that we understand that our economic interests are centered in Asia, East Asia particularly, between Japan, the Republic of Korea, China. The economic viability of the United States is centered. Consequently, any effort by the parties here to improve relations amongst one another are crucial. Nonetheless, we know, I think, over the years, that peace and stability is best obtained through strength, not through weakness. And so the pivot to Asia, if you will, is a psychological pivot, but it needs to be backed up with military hardware. And I'm very confident in what I've seen that the United States, not in a confrontational sense, but in a stability sense, is moving forces in an appropriate and responsible way to help our allies protect themselves and to help us protect our national interests while positively engaging with the Chinese here as one of our great trading partners. This can be and should be a win-win for all parties, and I'm hopeful that it will be.
General Bell, I wish we had more time, but unfortunately we do not. But we do thank you very much for being here and sharing your insights with us here today.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you for watching. A quick reminder to check out our homepage and leave us a comment or drop us a line on Twitter. We'll see you next week after 10.